Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Jeremy B. Hill Show. For those that are on their way to becoming the best version of themselves, finding their own success, these are the real life stories, the goods and the bad, the successes and the failures from those leaders who have made it and those that are still on the journey. Welcome to the show. All right, my friends, I'm so excited. Here today, here it is. We have one of the most exciting entrepreneurs in the country. Ryan Hogan, in a few short years, has built Hunt to Killer to over 100,000 subscribers and was just listed by Inc. magazine in the top 10 fastest growing companies in the country. He's here with us today, live via satellite, just kidding, from Palm Springs. He was smart enough to get out of Seattle when it's crappy and all that kind of jazz. But Mr. Ryan Hogan, how are you? It's great to see you.
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Jeremy. Appreciate the opportunity.
I'm so excited, buddy. Well, it is, we've been friends for a while now, and I've been following your journey and so excited to see the growth and the great things it is that you're doing. And so it's good to share some time. I'm excited. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and just sure excited to share your story with people. So for those people, it is, who haven't heard of you, or they've been maybe seeing a little bit about the Hunt to Killer brand, tell us a little bit about Hunt to Killer. What is that?
Sure. So Hunt to Killer is an immersive experiences company. And basically, what we do is we build communities around immersive entertainment. Today, the flagship brand or product at Hunt to Killer is this subscription. So it's a murder mystery subscription. And what we do is we deliver clues, items, and correspondence to your doorstep each month. Since then, we've expanded. We're sitting on the shelves of Target, which I'm sure we'll talk about today. And we've got a lot of other irons in the fire that we're very excited about.
Wonderful. And so when did y'all started? 2016?
2016. Yeah, I called my co-founder, Derek, probably late 2015. Him and I had been on a wild adventure prior to this venture. And I called him and just said, like, hey, do we want to get back into the entertainment space or live events business? And so we actually launched this in 2016. Hunt to Killer V1 was not a subscription box product. It was actually a live event. But yeah, we started back in 2016 is when we incorporated.
And the growth it is that you guys have had in such a short time is astonishing. So let's start with a little bit about your background. So did you grow up in a family of entrepreneurs? Are you the fourth of 18 children or something crazy? Tell us a little bit about kind of your entrepreneurial journey and growing up and this kind of a thing.
Yeah, I don't know where. Well, I guess we could probably draw some correlations with where it came from. I was raised by my mom, a single mother, and spent the weekends with my dad. But very much a budding, aspiring entrepreneur in the early days. So in middle school, or actually no, this was elementary school. I was selling creepy crawlers, which for your listeners, if you're not familiar, back in the 90s when there was easy bake ovens. There was also these ovens where you got to create and cook creepy crawlers, which wound up being like these little rubbery insects that you could take around. But I wound up hawking them and selling them in third grade. Took custom orders for a quarter, or just brought in solid colors for 10 cents. But my dad, a real estate agent and very entrepreneurial, just wanted to be his own boss. And continued to promise me that I could be whatever I wanted to be when I grew up. And a little bit of entrepreneurialism throughout the family as well. My uncle, a landscaping business that he grew fairly large. My uncle was a Baltimore architect. And so everybody was kind of dabbling into entrepreneurship. And I just knew that I loved the concept and the idea of creating. And so whether it was creating creepy crawlers or starting my own lawnmower business, there was a lot of creating in the early days.
Good for you. So, well, and it's amazing how you're just your environment as a kid has influence on you, good and bad. But seeing your dad kind of chart his own course in real estate and other different things, and being the candy mafia hustler, whatever you were as a kid, right, kind of a thing. And then I'm assuming mowing lawns and lemonade stands and shoveling snow in driveways, and it just was through you, kind of pervasive through you.
100%. And it's not always the things like again, it's about delivering. It's about creating. I can't say that mowing lawns and shoveling snow was the highlight of my entrepreneurship, but it certainly was exciting because it was a taste into creating real value for customers, and so much value that they would open up their wallets and give you money. And that's the absolute toughest part about entrepreneurship, product market fit. So being able to create so much value that someone pulls out their purse or their wallet, and gives you something in exchange for the value that you're creating, like that's where the passion and the energy comes from.
Fabulous. So growing up, getting through school, and now you were in the Navy for a long time, yeah?
Yeah, I'm still in the Navy. So today I'm in the United States Navy Reserves. I did about 15 years active duty. I've been in the reserves now for 3. So I've got 18 combined service. But right after high school, I joined the Navy, and I got shipped off and became a helicopter crewman.
Good for you. Well, thank you for your service and what it is that
Thanks.
you do. We appreciate that. So this Hunter Killer is not your first business. And so how are you the last, 15, 18 years, being in the Navy, having a family and young children and multiple businesses, and, in your spare time, auditioning for American Idol or whatever you do, right? But, there seems like not enough hours in the day. So Hunt a Killer wasn't your first entrepreneurial thing. So tell us a little bit about, any businesses or things it is that you had kind of that leading up to this.
Yeah, there was a bunch, and whether it was selling car parts or starting an eBay business, or starting an apparel business. One of the first companies that I actually kind of legitimately launched, meaning putting together the LLC and all of those different things, was called Warwear, and Warwear was performance apparel for military members. And so we had this concept of looking at the Under Armours and the Nikes, and we could create something that was specifically tailored for service members, whether that was fire retardant, or whether it was better materials or moisture wicking, or whether it was just coming in at a better price point. But the problem with that is that those days I had this idea that if you build it, they will come. And so this was back when Yahoo had their own e-commerce platform. And we had built this extravagant website, invested all of this money. We had about $125,000 worth of inventory. And
like sitting in the garage. I mean, is it like this, like old school entrepreneurship? I got boxes in my garage.
Boxes in the garage, a lot of boxes. My wife is about 10 feet from me right now outside, and she would tell you all about the boxes that were in the garage where we couldn't have our vehicles parked in there. Yes, boxes in the garage. I forgot all about that. But we hit launch on the website, and like there's this idea, or this like, we're going to hit launch and just orders are just going to start pouring in. And that's not the reality. Like, we hit launch and it was crickets. And then I think a week later we got our first order, and it was my mom. And that doesn't really count in entrepreneurship, because your parents and your family members and close friends typically all support your endeavor, and will do whatever it is that they think to make you successful. But the reality is that nobody came, nobody cared. And that's a tough but necessary lesson in entrepreneurship, is nobody cares, especially if you're not creating value. Like, when you're creating value and people are consuming whatever your product is, like, that's when they'll start handing money. But otherwise, you're just a website in a sea of other websites or other apparel companies.
Well, I mean, you and I've talked about this before, but I mean, it was what the Kevin Costner Field of Dreams, right? If you build it, they will come. But you could also build it and nobody comes, right? But you had put, if I remember right, you had put like a 50-page business plan and charts and graphs and all this other kind of thing. Like you had downloaded your brain and put this thing into it. It was gonna be great. I've spent a piss ton of money. I've got inventory. Now let's turn the lights on and where the hell is everybody kind of a thing, right? And
Nowhere.
so yeah, man. But there's the the lesson there really is you and I've talked about this before is you pull out of that, you know, so many times entrepreneurs you want to be committed, right? You know, you and I, nobody wants to see somebody that's kind of, you know, half baked, that they're half into something. So you can certainly applaud your commitment for just saying, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, right? We're going to go all in. But what's the takeaway from that for you now that said we should have done it this way?
Yeah. I think commitment is important, but it's commitment to the vehicle or commitment to the goals, not commitment necessarily to the concept or the actual product. You know, one reason I'm so excited about Hunt a Killer is not because we ship subscription boxes. I am stoked about Hunt a Killer because we can continue to take this platform in this community and develop amazing experiences and products that they will continue to continue to consume. And so the idea is get in and learn as much as you can as fast as you can, and that becomes a competitive advantage. So we spent a year in business planning and developing and fine tuning this amazing t-shirt product. At the end of the day, nobody cared, nobody came. And the only reason that we were able to salvage that company because we had all of that inventory sitting in the garage. The only reason we were able to salvage that company is because we pivoted. I wound up calling my co-founder, same co-founder from today, and said like, "Hey, look at this. I had just opened up a Men's Health, and I saw a Warrior Dash ad, and because
Wow.
of Warwear, I knew how much a Men's Health full page color ad was. Like you're talking $150,000 plus,
Wow.
which was mind-boggling even today, as much as it was back then. And I was like, there's got to be an opportunity here if they have enough money putting on these events. So I called him and I was like, hey, I've got a whole bunch of inventory. And if I don't figure out a way to move it, then we are going to be in big trouble. So why don't we
This is
start
you
an
calling Derek or you're calling Warrior Dash guys?
I'm calling Derek. And
Okay.
I'm calling Derek and I'm telling him that I just saw an ad for
Yeah.
Warrior Dash. And I was like, hey, like there's an opportunity here. And so the whole concept or the whole idea was Derek and I would create some sort of live event where I could give away the, 40,000 t-shirts that I have sitting in the garage. And then company B or new co would pay old co. And we'd be able to get some of our money back for that apparel in inventory. So like that was the whole idea. But that's what business has been ever since that day. And the hardest part is letting go.
Mm.
Meaning like once you have tried to, it's always the question mark. It's like, do I have enough data to say like this is or is not a viable concept? And like, we've even gone through that with Hunt a Killer and different initiatives that we've had.
Yeah, because we all have a degree of romance in our brain about how it's supposed to work, right? You know, for sure. So okay, so we create the basically, wife has said, hey, we got a garage full of shit and boxes that needs to go. I'd like to park my cars. Winter is coming. Go find some other kind of business. Get these damn boxes out of here, right? And so I
Yeah,
totally see the Warrior Dash and the Warrior Dash and Spartan races and Tough Mudders and all this kind of stuff. The people love experiences, and so you guys created a really cool Run for Your Life, right? Is what it was called. Okay,
Run for
so
your
talk
lives. Yep.
about Run for Your Lives as a means to give away free T-shirts.
Yeah. Yeah. So Run for Your Lives, the whole idea was just put on an event where we could give away the t-shirts. But the problem is that there were already events out there, right? So like what was our competitive advantage going to be against Warrior Dash, who was traveling to 40 plus cities already, which was a 5 kilometer obstacle course race, or Tough Mudder, which is like, the what was it, 20 miles, 20 or 30 miles of
Yeah.
just like brutalness. Like how are we going to differentiate ourselves? And we're like, well, what if we threw zombies in? And I was like, zombies, like what, how does that even work? And so basically, if you think back to 2010, The Walking Dead was up and coming,
Mhm.
and we saw a trend going towards zombies or a reemergence of zombies. And so we said, what if we could create a post-apocalyptic world? So if Warrior Dash is this, like, put on your warrior helmets and run along, and Spartan Race is all about this is Sparta. Like, what if we created a post-apocalyptic environment where we put a whole bunch of zombies in there? And that's what we did. So the first thing is that everything was themed. It
Yeah.
wasn't just the cargo net. It was like the zombie cargo net that you had to cross in order to get back into the safe zone, or very similar obstacles, but at the end of the day, themed towards what we were trying to create. Because the whole idea here is, or was, what if we could break reality? And then we had all of our participants don a flag football belt. We put 3 flags on each belt, and that was your life. So if you got through the whole obstacle race, 5-kilometer obstacle course race, with all of your flags remaining, meaning the 150 zombies that we had sprinkled throughout the course didn't grab all of your belts, or didn't grab all of your flags, then you were living when you
You're
came
living.
back. And if not, then you were a zombie. And we had different medals. So if you came and you didn't have any, you got this zombie medal, or you had a survivor medal. So really, really interesting, really fun, and we grew it surprisingly very fast.
Good for you. That sounds cool. And so people love that kind of thing because, like you said, it's a break from reality. It's something different than the normal routine of what it is that we do, every single day. And so that business grew, took off. It was a one-time get rid of some t-shirts event. What happened with it?
Yeah, it grew very fast, and then unfortunately, it went away just as fast.
Bottle rockets.
So yeah, it was certainly a flash in the pan, and a lot of great lessons learned, from that from that experience. But we had grown that. So the first year, 2011, we had a single event in Baltimore, Maryland. The next year we did 13 events. The following year we tried to get to about 23, but ultimately ran out of cash on that journey. So we were doing it for about 2.5 years. We scaled it from 0 to about 8.5 million bucks. But there was other things that we were battling. One, in the experiential entertainment world, fads and trends change very fast, and that's something that you have to be cognizant of. You need to figure out ways to continue to provide that type of value, especially when you have competitors out there. And so for us, it was not only the Warrior Dashes and the Spartan races, it was also all of these mom and pop farms that were hosting these events, and they were getting, let's call it 100,000 for a weekend from Tough Mudder from us coming in, but they were seeing 15,000 people come to their property. And so a lot of these venues were like, we can do this.
Right.
And the reality is nobody understands how hard it is to market and bring in that many folks. And so not that any of them were extremely successful, but where they were successful is taking market share.
Yeah.
And so, when you go from a landscape of 3 to 5 and you expand that into, 100, and it's every single weekend because farms are putting up their, permanent obstacle course races, it was hard to compete. And then the last was just hanging on to cash and,
Sure.
and putting the right people in place. So
Yeah.
a lot of lessons coming out of that.
So coming through that, you're still in the Navy at this time. So how you're balancing all of this is beyond me. But then how did Hunt to Killer, like what's day one of Hunt to Killer? You and Derek are looking for something. Okay, great. What's next, right? You still got that itch to create something. So how did Hunt to Killer come together and start?
Yeah, so 2013 was when Run for Your Lives wound down. And at that point, I was going to school. I had been selected for a program called Seaman to Admiral, State 21 in the Navy. And basically, it was an enlisted commissioning program. And so I was actually a part of this three-year Navy program where they were sending me to school at the University of Maryland. And in 2013, I actually got my commission. So 2013, the company went bankrupt, and then I also got my commission, and the Navy sent me out to San Diego to become a SWO, a surface warfare officer, driving ships. And it was probably about 2 or 3 years later. So 2016, I called him at the end of 2015, and I was dabbling in different things. And I had created this company called Polaris, and for the audience that doesn't know, a centerline Polaris on a naval vessel is basically the compass. It gives us the direction. And I created this company called Polaris, which was basically an automated gifting company, because when I was out at sea, it was very difficult to remember all the birthdays, anniversaries, everything that you're supposed to provide gifts for. So I created this platform called Polaris, which was supposed to solve for that. It wasn't really going anywhere, and certainly wasn't going anywhere fast. And I had an advisor come to me and say, like, why are you focused on software? Like, you're not a developer. Sure, you have a pain point, but you've got this incredible background and experience in live events and entertainment. Like, why not figure that out? And so, like, literally overnight, I wound down Polaris, that I had used a whole bunch of 401k money for. And then I called Derek, and Derek and I had certainly kept in touch over the years, but we hadn't gotten back into business together. And I said, well, why don't we do this again? And we'll use the same sort of mechanics that we use for Run for Your Lives, which is, look across the industry for trends in immersive entertainment and trends in themes and genres, and let's put on events. So, it was a fairly quick 2.5-year gap, and we were right back into it with Hunt to Killer.
Good for you. That's wonderful. So how did the first, getting set up? So did Hunt to Killer start with, so it didn't always start with the kind of the box subscription that it is now, right? And so how did kind of day one go? Like, what was the first, 6 months or year like between saying, okay, well, we're going to do this thing. Now what? Right? Like getting started. How was that first year or two?
Yeah. So in let's call it Q4 2015, when I reached out, and Derek and I were very much leaning on what we already knew, and that was live events. And so when we looked across the industry at different types of experiences, you had interactive theater like the Off-Broadway Sleep No More, you had escape rooms coming over from Europe and Asia, and then you still had a lingering obstacle race market. So him and I were like, let's take those three things and create a super special experience where we could immerse people into a story that we've created. And so Hunt to Killer V1 was a live event. Basically, we transformed 200 acres into a living crime scene. So, throughout the woods, we staged crime scenes and had bodies in the woods and different things where they could go in and become a real detective. We had staged actors. Yeah, it was amazing. Staged actors where, like, if you asked them certain things, they would give you certain pieces of information. And so our participants just spent an entire day kind of navigating through this immersive story that we had created. And then it all culminated in a final scene. But that, we weren't even thinking about subscription boxes in the first 6 months. First 6 months, we were just planning an event. And then as we continued to sell tickets to this first event, so we started selling, January, February of 16, and the event wasn't until October. And ticket sales were great and everything was going in the right direction. But what we realized is that we just couldn't scale the event. So you think back to, it's a
There's
obstacle race.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, completely different. And so that's when we were just like, well, we have product market fit. People are buying tickets. They absolutely want to do this thing. Is there a pivot for the business for a more scalable business model?
Yeah. And then, so that's where it is that you started getting into saying, let's take this experience, like real life, physical, walking through the woods and finding bodies and doing this kind of a thing, and turn that into not a virtual experience, but an experience it is that, an at-home version of that, right? And that's where kind of the box came, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that was probably summertime. We were still selling tickets for the event, for the first event. And it was like, well, this just isn't going to scale. So, like, while we're still creating this event that's coming in October, like, let's figure something else out so we can launch it right after. So, it was about 2 weeks after the first event, so October 15th-ish, and we started shipping our first subscription boxes. So we had identified it early enough to be able to pivot the company right after that first experience.
So and is this still just you and Derek at this time?
So we brought on, when we made the commitment or decided that we were going to get into subscription boxes, we brought on our first full-time employee, and he's still with us today. His name's Adam Muller. He's an incredible writer and creative. And he really kind of took that program and that platform while Derek and I focused on getting through that first event.
Was it scary hiring your first person?
Yeah, I mean, it's always scary. It's still this is weird, but like I've even been getting nervous lately. Like hiring is always like this nerve-wracking thing, whether it's, the commitment that, you are now responsible, for someone else, that there is a certain level of um, commitment that goes along with that.
Excitement and
Or
anxiety wrapped into one, right?
right, right. So yeah, I'm sure we were very nervous then.
So what, all of us, right? We've got dreams and aspirations of getting there, wherever there is, right? We've got our own journeys and this kind of a thing, but all along the way, you've got, other the responsibilities, right? You got some people it is that are an entrepreneur, figuring out what it is that they're doing while they're working their 9 to 5 or however it is that they're doing. Obviously we're at home, so COVID's kind of, making things, different than what it is that they were a year or two ago. How were you at, how were you back then growing a business, pivoting it? You're married at the time, you have kids at the time.
Yep.
How are you dealing with that and being a Navy and managing all of this stuff all at the same time while remaining sane, right? Like,
Yeah.
how did that work?
Yeah. Well, 2013 was a very difficult year, and that was trying to balance all of this with the military, and then with obviously the collapse of Run for Your Lives. But generally speaking, like the first thing
And
that
that's when
that
you get your commission, right? That's when you're now starting to go to school and stuff is right. So this
yeah,
is just amazing. Yeah.
it's a lot, and so it starts with having the right people, the right people to focus on the right things, and then also being able to prioritize. So for instance, there's only 24 hours in a given day, so things certainly drop through the cracks, and you just try and make sure that the things that are slipping through are not the things that are going to kill the business. So the first step is ruthless prioritization, understanding like what needs to happen, and getting those things done. Having the right people on the bus, so getting incredible talent to come through and help, kind of complement either your shortfalls or complement your weaknesses. Which I have always had the luck of having Derek with businesses that have actually scaled. So let's say I've launched 30 plus businesses, whether it was actual LLCs or just concepts. The only two that have actually gone somewhere, Derek's been a part of. And I think I'm incredibly fortunate to have someone like him that's been able to take the things that I couldn't take, and focus on the creative stuff or the operation stuff while I focused on the Navy and some of these other things that I had going on. But it's ruthless prioritization. It's also the understanding of like stuff will potentially not move as fast as you want it to. Like if you're balancing a full career and some of these other things, there's certainly trade-offs, but there is no secret sauce. Everybody's got the same amount of time a day. And my family, I am fortunate that I have a supportive family, and there's certainly sacrifices on that side as well.
I think there's a couple things it is that you said there that are key. So you said it is that you had started in some form, fashion, or another, roughly 30 businesses, right? And some were, actually going through and incorporating the business, setting up the accounts and doing everything to move forward. And some were kind of, don't make it much past the idea phase. I think so many people's problem, and I know that you've seen this as well, is that so many people's problem is that they're just scared to start, right? They want to have all their shit figured out. They want to, know the end of the story before they start, and you just can't, right? You don't know. You don't know what tomorrow is going to be or next week is going to be. You damn sure don't know what next year is going to look like. And so you've got to just start. And so one of the things it is that I think is awesome, which is certainly attributed to your success, is let's start the journey, right? Let's start proving this. Let's start moving. Let's start doing this, and we'll figure out tomorrow. And and we'll get a little bit smarter as we go. I think that's critical for people, right?
Yeah.
The other thing it is that you said is that, Derek filled in your gaps for the parts of the business, not necessarily that you didn't want to do, but that there's some things it is that he's probably better at than you are. And there's something, right? And so oftentimes too, when guys are starting businesses, is that they want everybody around them to be like them, right? Because it's comfortable if Ryan and I are in business together and Ryan's just like me and we form this little echo chamber and this kind of right. That doesn't work either, right? And so figuring out a way to bring people around you, it is that complement your strengths so they kind of fill in. That's what makes the business, or at least increases your chances for success, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and like also there's folks that hang on to certain things, or even though they bring someone on and maybe delegate or say you're responsible for this, like they still want the oversight, or they want to micromanage.
Yeah.
I am very different. Like my expectation, I start with trust. So I trust you wholeheartedly, especially if you're joining our team, that we have made the right decision, that you are competent and capable in the position that we're putting you in. And then it's your opportunity to start to lose that trust, or disprove my assumption there. Um, but but I get excited when we bring people through the door and I can get stuff off of my plate, because like if I am delegating something, it means that I believe that you are better at that thing than I am. And so it's exciting when we get new and fresh people through the door that have a different take. Like we're looking for people even today. Like I think we've got 20 plus job postings that are out right now. I know we're trying to double over the next 12 months. And the people we are searching for are the ones that on day one can come through the door, look at what we're doing, and tell us how to do it better. We do not want people to come in, adopt our systems and our processes, and then just kind of conform to the way that Hunt to Killer does business, because we are growing so fast. A lot of those processes are homegrown, and they need experienced people to help refine. So um, talent and delegation and trust have been really kind of keys to our growth.
So how is that? How did that go for you early on? So it's you and Derek, and then it's you and Derek and the other writer it is that came in. How was it early on beginning to attract talent or bring in a team and get the kind of the right puzzle pieces together it is to make this thing go? How are you finding people? How are you recruiting people when you may not have had the brand awareness? You may not have had the balance sheet. How do you figure that stuff out? Or
Yeah, I like we've always used just ZipRecruiter, and I know that sounds really weird. Like well, now we are, because now we've brought in professional people to come in and help us understand different platforms where we can find talent. But back in the day, it was just get a $99 a month ZipRecruiter account and write great job descriptions, post them, and find incredible talent. I think we've been very fortunate. Like here's the deal: is our business is very exciting. And I don't say that to brag, to say like Derek and I created this very exciting business. I mean, just by the nature of what we do, it's a very fun business. Whether it was Run for Your Lives or whether it's this, like we just get people that naturally gravitate to what we're trying to do. I mean, we believe deeply and we are passionate about bringing people together around immersive experiences. Like we want to build communities, and we want to bring people together where they can share in the experiences, whether those are normal life experiences or the immersive, reality breaking experiences that we create. And there's a lot of people that get that, understand that, and are passionate about that the way that we are. So I think we've been really lucky when it's come to recruiting, um, because we've just used standard channels, and we've been able to find incredible people, that are committed.
was there a point, was there like a turning point? Because you're uh, in the Navy, you've got the commitments there, you're going to school, you're dealing with wife and kids, you're hustling Hunt to Killer, you're praying to God at night that he gives you 25 hours in the day tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Something like this. But was there a point to where you and Derek, or a point to where you and your wife, you're sitting down having dinner, you're talking, and you're like, oh my God, this is actually starting to work? Was there like a turning point to where you had like, oh shit, man, this is working. This is awesome.
Yeah. I don't think so. There's a lot of points to that, because um so I'll give you a quick tangent or a quick side story. My wife and I had a conversation about 3 years ago now, and I was contemplating getting out of the Navy. And I had spent up until that point 15 years active duty, which for everybody that understands the military and retirement, things like that, that is 5 years away from retirement, which means I can walk out of the Navy with whatever rank I am and continue to collect a paycheck at a certain percentage for the rest of my life until I die, and all the other benefits that come with retirement. But 5 years away from just collecting a paycheck every other week from from the U.S. government in exchange for the 20 years that I've given it. And I told my wife I don't think I want to do this anymore. 75% of the way there, I'm not feeling this, and I can get into a long story of why I wasn't feeling it. Because certainly the military was for me in a lot of different ways and helped me achieve a lot of great goals. But I just wasn't feeling it anymore. And we had a very quick conversation around it where my interpretation was I was going to submit my resignation the next day. Her interpretation was there's going to be plenty of follow-up conversations regarding this topic. So I dropped my resignation the next day, and it takes about 6 months to process. And we had been like 5 months into the whole kind of Navy approval thing, and they kept saying it was going to get delayed. And then I was in Baltimore for Hunt to Killer, and I got a phone call, and they said, "Hey, your paperwork was approved, and it was approved for the original date. So like you're actually out of the Navy in 2 weeks." Which for something that I have spent 15 years up until that time doing, like 2 weeks to get my affairs in orders and hope this is going to work, was not a lot of time. But looking back on that, so like I just have this like weird confidence of like we're going to make it, we're going to figure it out. Like it doesn't matter. Like we may grow, we may shrink, we may do this, we may do that. Like, but we are going to figure this out, and we are going to continue to have an amazing business and scale the amazing business. But none of that is without challenges. However, recently I was looking back on where we were as a business when I had submitted that resignation, and we were around $2 million. So the fact that there was like that level of buy-in or commitment, my wife may not have agreed, but at that point enough to get out. Um, I don't know, but I don't feel like that right now as well. Like when you say the success, like we haven't made it. Like we're nowhere close to what we're trying to accomplish at this point. We were profitable last year, which we're very excited about. So I think there's a certain sense of finally this rock feels like it may be on the other side of the hill, and we've got some momentum, which is incredibly exciting. Um, but no, we're still trucking.
Well, you have got offices in, you've got where you're Seattle, Baltimore, and LA. Where are you?
Yeah, we've got some staff. Those tend to be our concentration areas, even though
Yeah.
we're expanding. But the Baltimore area, we've got a couple offices. Seattle work from home, and LA work from home. But yeah, those are the concentration areas.
Well, everybody has a different opinion of what success is. I applaud what it is that you guys have done, and I definitely think it is that the flywheel's going. You got a bright future. And so, fast forward to today. So we got the origin story and the dirt under your fingernails, hustling to getting this thing done. The business today is, where are you as far as so offices in Baltimore, Seattle, LA for obviously the media concentration down there, and then how many employees? How about roughly where's the company?
Yeah, today we're somewhere between 70 and 75 full time. But I was just looking at some paperwork this morning. We've got 158 either contracted or full time folks that are helping us realize this vision. So
Wow.
um, a lot of support, a lot of support.
Good for you. That's fantastic. And so the company has been starting to meet some headlines. You guys have had year over year significant, growth, almost doubling year over year. How did the Inc. thing come together? So you guys got in the top 10 fastest growing company in Inc. magazine. So I remember when that was coming out, and I was thinking, holy shit, I'm finally going to know somebody who's famous. This is awesome, something like that. So how did that come together for you?
Yeah, like we had our eyes set on it. I forget. I think it was like during the Run for Your Lives days. Like I had seen Warrior Dash was like a number 36 or something back then, And so that's when I first got a taste of this ink list. And then I had just followed it ever since. They put together a military program. So I was actually going as a part of that program
Oh,
yearly
cool. Yeah.
to the ink conference. And so there was just this thing where I was like, we can do this. Obviously, we were shooting for first place. We came in sixth, which we are still incredibly proud and excited
Wow.
about. But number one in consumer products, number one in the state of Washington, number one in the state of Maryland.
Wow.
Just an incredible journey that we had our eyes on since the day that we launched this. So um, I don't know. We're very proud of that. It's something that we've celebrated a couple of times now in this virtual environment. But it's brought on a lot of accolades and attention, which we're humbled at this point. We had a write up in Forbes, and we were humbled with that as well. So
Fabulous.
um, yeah, yeah, just something that we kept focused on, and it you know we helped it come into play.
So with this success and now not only attention on a local level, on both coasts, but attention on a national level, what is what's the focus now for the business over the next, year or 2 years or 3 years? Where do you see kind of market opportunity and what are you guys excited about?
Yeah, so we're excited about product expansion, and for us, like we had this inkling of an idea that maybe we could get into retail distribution. So if you look at a majority of the successful subscription box or successful e-commerce brands, direct to consumer brands, there are multiple channels or diversification of revenue streams. Like there is a component of retail distribution in most successful organizations, and so it's something like that we've had our eye on for a while, but we didn't understand how quickly we could actually make that happen. And we were at the Toy Fair in 2020, and right before at the Javits Center in New York City, right before that was turned into a field hospital with the pandemic, and we wound up getting picked up by Target. And like that was we're in this leapfrog section. You have to be, regardless of if you're $100 million company or $100,000 company. And you get some looks, but very rarely, if ever, does Target come into the leapfrog section and say, we are going to move or rearrange some of our shelf space in 6 months to get you through the door this year. And not only did we get on the shelves, but we've been one of the best selling products at Target. We're the fastest growing toy and games category brand on Amazon. So like these are all things that we are incredibly excited about. So anyhow, that's long-winded for the next 1 to 3 years. What we're really focused on is product expansion. So what are different categories in this gaming space where we can continue to innovate and bring our format of storytelling into those mediums? And then secondly, and this is really where we see escape velocity, is digital distribution. Hunt a Killer can get to 100 million, 250, maybe $500 million relatively quickly with our current business model. But if we want to scale velocity, if we want to compete with the big corporations, we need digital distribution. And so that's something that we are not only hiring for, we are very focused on creating this application where we can immerse you into our reality, all through the comfort of your phone.
Fabulous, right? So I guess that brings it, the next question, right? Is so from early on, now y'all have been kind of bootstrapped and internally financed since, right? So for everybody wonders how they're going to, finance this, that, or the other thing, or how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And one of the things you talked about earlier is just being just committed to the process, right? And so one of the things I had heard years ago is that, you're committed to the outcome. You're just not attached to the process. That's what I meant, right? Like I'm committed to the end result of where it is that I'm going. I don't really care how I get there, right? I just want to get there. And so, how have you guys, y'all bootstrapped up until this period of time, but really in order to get your digital distribution and to work on some of these bigger licensing deals that you have and that kind of thing, like are y'all seeking funding at some point?
Yep. Yeah, so we are in the market now to raise our first round of equity, and so we've been able to bootstrap this or work with amazing partners like yourself, to help us raise debt. But when we start taking more significant risks, meaning investment into digital, which will not only be um, uh, costly from a just paying for the development of the product and things like that, but also to be able to put the team in place to see to where this is going. It takes equity investment. So for the first time in the company's history, we're going out to market to raise our first round of equity. And really, the sole focus of that is to continue to build an amazing team around this digital initiative, and then also have the working capital. The targets. One thing that we learned the hard way is that retail distribution is great. You don't have to worry about customer acquisition costs or the direct marketing to the consumer. The distribution, everything just happens magically. But you do have to pay for the inventory up front. And so a lot of these initiatives that we have are capital intensive. And so we are going to raise our first round of equity.
Well, I have no doubt that you guys will be you'll definitely find a dance partner or two or 20 that are that are looking
Thanks.
for you, which is awesome. I'll keep my fingers crossed, man. Keep them
Yeah.
crossed.
Thanks, Jeremy.
So the business today, right? Like, so if you and I would have had lunch or a cup of coffee or a beer 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, is the business today kind of what it is that you envisioned building?
I think from a vision standpoint, meaning would we be creating communities around immersive experience, because that's what the event was, right? Like the whole idea of bringing people together, like that's the exciting part, bringing them together and just whatever we can imagine trying to distort or break reality. That's the whole vision. So from a vision standpoint, yes. From a product, absolutely not. I never would have thought that we would have been into the subscription business and then digital and then retail distribution and competing with the Hasbros and sharing shelf space with some of these with the Mattels and others. Like certainly that's not what I saw, but I leave a lot of that intentionally loose. Like I don't think about necessarily the products or try and focus in on where is the product specifically going to be 5 years from now. And because what happens is when you become solely focused on the endpoint for what you believe that product is, it can insert bias. And the products are not my baby. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there where it's all about don't tell me my baby's ugly. And like we welcome that feedback as quickly as possible. We want to know what you love about our experience and what you can't stand about our experience, because we're going to go back into the labs and we're going to change all of that. And so we obsess about the customer, and that translates to obsession with the product. But it's only once we have that feedback do we start, really making significant headway. So anyhow, that's long-winded, but the whole concept there is no, I never would have seen where we were today with the company. But certainly with growth and with where we stand with the vision, this has been a part of the plan the whole time.
That's awesome. Is there, hopefully we're all smarter today than we were yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Or smarter tomorrow than we were 6 months ago. Is there anything in the business that you wish you would have done sooner? Is there a decision you wish that said, I wish I would have done this 6 months sooner than I did, or something like that?
Hmm. You know, here's the reason that's tough, because I could go back and look at all of the initiatives or products or different things that we have built that haven't been of the success that, let's say, Hunt to Killer subscription or some of these other initiatives, the retail. Before retail, we were getting into other genres and we were launching multiple subscription products and some of these different things. And while all of them have not been successful, we had to learn those lessons in order for other things to actually be successful.
Yeah.
Just a quick, for instance, would be brand architecture. So the fact that we went out to market very early days with this new product called Earthbreak and Empty Faces, and both of these were the same sort of subscription product, just in a different genre.
Mhm.
And we still deeply believe in the genre, so far as much as we've created kind of sub brands of Hunt to Killer. So we've got Hunt to Killer Mystery, Hunt to Killer Horror, Hunt to Killer Science Fiction. But some of the things that we learned were like, if you're going out and putting a new name on a new product, and you're not carrying through any of that brand awareness that you already have after, growing this company for 3 to 4 years, then you're essentially starting over. So we were into the podcast business for quite some time. And although we couldn't figure out ways to monetize it, we used the lessons learned either from the monetization or truly the lessons learned of creating and distributing audio content. And we folded that into a core competency. And so now when you get your Hunt to Killer immersive experience and there's different audio components of that experience, it's from all of the lessons learned and the competencies that we had, from let's call it the failure of the podcast strategy, that we were trying to monetize. So no, I think one thing that we've done really good is we failed fast but we've needed those failures to continue to transform the company.
Yeah, I mean, it's a story of who knows, if I would have made that decision sooner, I wouldn't have learned something else that let me be smarter, right? And so it's all those different little experiences that are just accretive to who we become, right? If I would have done that sooner, then maybe we wouldn't have done this later or something, right? So you said going forward, this next, year or two, you guys are focused on digital. Are there any other, exciting opportunities? I mean, like, you guys now have partnerships and distribution deals with Amazon and with Target. You got a licensing deal with Lionsgate, one of the most incredible entertainment companies in the world. Where do you see, opportunities? Is there anything else outside of digital over the next year or two you guys are really excited about?
Yeah. So a part of what we do is these inbound licenses. And so you brought up a great partnership that we have with Lionsgate, and that was for our Blair Witch product. And that's gone incredibly well. And we're about to turn that into a season box set, which we know will fly off the shelves as well. But the other initiative that we have is outbound licensing. And so one of the things that we've done extremely well is we've created our own library of intellectual property. And what we are best in the world at is translating that intellectual property into immersive experiences, which we use that core competency for Blair Witch. We took intellectual property, we brought it into our process, and we turned it into an amazing immersive experience. But that doesn't make the full catalog of intellectual property that we own, any less worth. And so for us, it's all about figuring out what types of mediums can we put our own intellectual property in where other people have that core competency. And so, right now we're working with publishing companies to create a young adult book series for the Hunt to Killer brand. We're working with some major entertainment companies to talk about turning this into everything from a full feature length movie to a television series. And so,
Awesome.
For us, really, the sky's the limit, and it's just a matter of finding the right partners to help us, translate these amazing stories into different mediums.
All right, so I'm going to throw this little plug in here real quick. Don't forget about us little people when you're on TV, right? All this other kind of thing, right? Okay, just
yeah.
So, we all have our own version or interpretation of what we think success looks like or should look like, or what we want it to look like for us. And so for you personally, and for Hunt to Killer, what does success mean, or what does success look like for you?
I think success to us, and it's hard to put a number on it, because I look at success much like I look at vision. And we can have a mission, and a mission is a certain criteria. So it's, quality products, or it's these metrics or these KPIs. A vision is aspirational. And that's really kind of the same way that I look at success, because if we put a benchmark on success, then it'll set the expectation that at a certain time we're all going to kick up our feet. And that's not the reality. But I think that success is just pulling people together in a far greater capacity than we are today. Today we are pulling hundreds of thousands of people, primarily across the United States and sometimes in UK and Canada and Australia and some of these other secondary markets we have. But what we're looking for is in the tens of millions globally.
Yeah.
And I think we can accelerate that with digital. The minute that you can download an app and jump into your community and share, the experiences that you're having, I think it's a totally different game for Hunt to Killer. Um, but that's what success is in a far greater, pulling tens of millions of people together into a community where they can share our experiences. I think that's when we won't kick up our feet, but we'll certainly reflect and say, this was the goal all along.
Good for you. If you could, let's say it this way, for guys that are listening to this, so maybe not the guys that have, already in their mind kind of, hit their stride, but they're either on the cusp of starting something or they've just started something and they're a year or two into it. What kind of counsel or advice or any kind of pearls of wisdom have you learned that you would give guys that are on the journey just starting out?
Yeah, I think like pre-product market fit, it's all about product market fit. Like that's it. Like the sole focus has to be finding or generating enough value to where people will actually pay for it. But post product market fit, the cheat code is a team. Like that's it. And it's interesting. I was reading a blog, I think like 9 months ago, and the blog was, where do I spend all my time post Series A? It's amazing. All these folks that spend careers raising money and offering advice on post series. But what this person had wrote about was 40% of their time was being spent in recruiting. And I had never thought about it like that. I had never delineated my time between 5 different categories and put it into these buckets. But what I did start doing at that point was exactly that, and really starting to understand, where do I focus my time? Of course, to improve, but also just to identify, like, where do I spend my time? And where I spend a majority of my time is on recruiting and recruiting efforts and finding the right people. And whether that is networking, because you're going to need amazing talent constantly. And it may not be today, but if you broaden your network tomorrow, the person that you met 2 years ago might be the exact leader that you need to bring into your organization. So anything post product market fit, the cheat code is all about finding incredible people that know more than you do about that. And that's what we have spent a significant amount of time doing, and a significant amount of my time. So I don't know, pre-product market fit, it's iterating. It's just go, iterate, and get to a place of where people are actually buying. But as soon as you have enough confidence in product market fit, it's about building a team.
That's incredible. Well, you guys have built what I think right now is probably one of the most exciting growth companies in the country. You're getting tons of attention. You're going to be getting a ton more. I would imagine as you guys go out on this fundraising dating process, you will very soon be the prettiest girl at the dance if you're not already.
Yep.
And so for anybody listening, if you have not checked out Hunt to Killer, check it out. Where can people find not only more about the brand, but how can people connect with you?
Yeah, sure. So you can find out more about Hunt to Killer at hunttokiller.com, HUNTAKILLER.com. But I love to connect with folks for perspective. I love to be challenged. And I just love expanding my network. And so I would encourage you to find me on places like LinkedIn. It's just Ryan E. Hogan, or at Ryan E. Hogan, whether it's Twitter or LinkedIn. But would love to connect with anyone in your audience and answer any questions they may have.
That's fabulous. And so this is one of the coolest things in the country. So it's a great gift. Guys out there, you need to up your date night, forget the whole Netflix and chill type of a thing, right? This is something totally cool. Great for, I got to think weekends with the kids, with wine nights with the girls, any of this other kind of thing. People love experiences, and Hunt to Killer is an incredible experience. If you have not checked it out, please go check it out. And I encourage you to go find and follow Ryan and check out Hunt to Killer. My friend, I'm so glad it is that we shared some time today. I'm so excited for your journey. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
All right, buddy. I loved it. Thanks so much.
All right.
Thanks for listening today. This has been the Jeremy B. Hill Show. If you liked today's episode, go on and give us a 5-star review. Not 4, but 5. And even more importantly, share it with somebody else. This is Jeremy B. Hill. Your success is waiting for you, but it's not going to wait forever. Go get it.